Afternoon or morning, depending on where you are zooming in from today. And I'd like to welcome you to METALCON Live from what is soon going to be a very snowy Boston. I am Judy Geller, Director of METALCON, here with Kaylin Burke at the controls, and we're so glad you could join us today for folder operator safeties, the do's and don'ts of folding and forming machinery operation. It's presented by Sidan's Chandler Barden, National Sales Manager at Sidan Machinery. And by the way, a huge thank you goes out to Sidan. They are a title sponsor for METALCON 2021 in Tampa, which is going to take place next October 6th through 8th. And honestly, we can't wait to get together in person at METALCON. And our plan is to be back bigger and better in 2021. And we're actually going to be rolling out all kinds of exciting exhibits on architectural metals, solar, offsite construction, and so much more. So registration is open, the hotel block is open, and we're looking forward to seeing you in Tampa. And speaking of METALCON, our partners, the Metal Construction Association, invites you to discover the benefits of becoming MCA members. For details, please contact Jeff Irwin at jeff.irwin5135@gmail.com. I also have some exciting news regarding our next METALCON Live that will take place on January 13th. Metal Architecture and METALCON Live have teamed up to deliver a limited series of webinars that will showcase projects that illustrate the beauty, durability, efficiency, and sustainability of metal. The first of the series takes place, as I mentioned, on January 13th. It is a case study on a topic that has been receiving a lot of attention. It's titled Civitas and the Role of Metal in Meeting a Zero Carbon World, and it will be presented by Archimania Principal Barry Yoakum, so that would be great. Registration is also open for that. You'll be receiving some info via email. So please pass the word and be sure to share it with your architect and designer colleagues. If you have any technical trouble during the webinar, just use the chat and we're here to help you. And finally, before I turn things over to Chandler, I would just like to wish you all a very happy and healthy and safe holiday season. And we look forward to seeing you back here for METALCON Live on January 13th. Thanks, and Chandler, over to you.
Thanks, Judy. Here we go. Let me share my screen and then we'll kind of hop into this. Judy, if you'll just give me a quick thumbs up once you guys see it.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, so here we are with probably the most exciting of all the METALCON Live topics, the safety of folding machines and other forming 10-foot folders and long folders, and the do's and don'ts of safe operation of those machines. This is something we typically do at each METALCON. At METALCON, we actually get in front of machines where we'll demonstrate some of the safety features, both the standard and the optional. We spend time, around the machine just seeing how the safety functions work. Obviously, we can't do that here on the live or the Zoom meeting. So encourage you that at METALCON in Tampa, bring yourself, whether you're, an owner, manager, operations manager, or an operator. Come check out the presentation, and you'll see some of the different options that I'll cover in the last part of this presentation. You'll see them in action at the show in October. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started. One other thing is we cover some different topics or some different subtopics, let's say, in regards to safety and operating the machines. So I think if you have a question, just shoot it in the chat at any point in time in the presentation. It'll be better for us to cover it then. If we do miss something and we need to go back, it's not a big deal. Okay, so with that said, we'll go to the overview. So we start off the presentation, we're just going through a pre-operational safety inspection. This is an important step that a lot of people miss. We'll go over proper startup and calibration, proper and safe use and operation of the machine, proper general maintenance, and then safety devices. Safety devices will be covered throughout, but the last bullet point is mainly what we're going to be covering at the end of the presentation with aftermarket or additional safety features that you can purchase with them or add on to the machines. Some OEMs have them as standard and some don't. See, there's a question coming in. Let's see. Bear with me real quick. I will jump back to the, yeah, we will do, Ken asked if there's a PDF download of the presentation. I'll supply that to PSMJ. They'll have the list of the attendees on here, and then we'll send it out from there. Okay, so folding area precautions. Before or when you're installing or when you're starting to train, and at the beginning of each day, you want to take a look at the folding area or the general area around the machine. We always want to make sure that the control itself is in a good area for both the operation of the machine, the manipulation of material, and safely operating, or so the operator can safely reach the control. Most OEMs that I know of, I think all OEMs that I know of, restrict where the control can go, so it cannot collide with the moving axis of the machine. That said, there are ways that operators can, loosen different bolts or set screws or whatever it is to move the control. If you ever see that they've moved it into a new position, always just double check that it's reachable for the operator, especially if the control has a safety stop on it. I work for Sedan, but this presentation isn't for Sedan. It's just for a general folding machine application. So if all OEMs don't have the same location of safety stops, they're generally the same, but they're not the exact. So just be aware of that, where your control is. If there's a safety stop on it, you want to make sure that the operator can reach it. Some advice I would also give for the safety of your machine and the control is to make sure that the control is out of the area that you would manipulate a part. So when the operator is helicoptering a part or flipping it over, if it's a large part, he's not going to smack the control. Most controls nowadays are touch screen. So if you smack it with a piece of metal, that can be pretty bad and an expensive mistake. Also, talk to your OEMs about screen protectors. I know a lot of different OEMs offer screen protectors. That's just a simple like plexiglass that flaps down in front of the screen. So if you smack the control, you would hit that instead of the actual touch screen. That's a good question, when you're buying a machine, or even if for your existing machines out there. If not, just just make something on your own. Maintain. I've been in hundreds of different facilities and shops looking at equipment, trying to sell equipment, helping people, and what I've seen is a wide spectrum of cleanliness around machines. And in my opinion, this goes back to safety. There's obvious issues with material on the floor, with material that's stuck on the back gauge and a moving axis. Well, it might get sucked into a moving axis or clamped on or something. But also it's a sense of ownership, keeping a clean machine, both with material, not storing material on the back gauge or on the machine, but also the floor around it that allows the operator to move in case he needs to, or even as far as, wiping down the machine and keeping it clean. Having those steps and those procedures for the operator, not just the maintenance person, but for the operator, is key to allowing them to pay attention to the machine, or encouraging for them to pay attention to the machine. It also allows them to take a sense of ownership of it. So maintaining a good machine is equivalent in the safety aspect as well. Use personal protection equipment. You're again, going back to my experience and going in the shops, many people think that they don't need to use gloves. People get hurt doing that. It's certain controls are harder to use with gloves on. Just try to use gloves, all the PPE equipment as much as possible. I think that goes, without saying. Develop a sense of personal safety awareness. Regular safety check-ins, going over this presentation a couple times a year with your team. Also pushing them to maintain that piece of equipment, keep a clean area. The more conversations we have about safety, the better. So here we see a couple different working areas. On the left-hand side, we see a nice clean area. You have your blank table on the left within the green picture, so the operator can easily load the folder. Now, obviously, this is a long folder. I don't know how long of sheets are forming on it, but there's a couple things that I'd like to point out here. One, the materials stored, the flat materials stored nicely on the cart here. The foreign materials stored behind it. It's more efficient and easier to manipulate the foreign material than it is the flat material. But one key takeaway here, on all the machines on the left-hand side, you have 3 different long folders. They're not storing material on the upper beam of the machine. You'll see many times that customers store material on the upper beam. It really won't damage the machine. Well, I can't speak for all OEMs, but it won't damage a machine. But it's not good practice, because when you store a bunch of blanks up there, it can be more efficient when an operator's just reaching up and sliding the material down. But if they were to accidentally grab more than one, or whatever mounting system that's connecting it to the machine were to break, when those sheets fall, they're coming down, and they're more or less razor blades coming down to the person's legs or feet, or arms, depending on where his or her location is at the time. I think it's real important to point that out. I understand the advantages of it, but it is a risk. The other thing with the picture on the left is that there's a clear area that's painted around the machine. That it's on the pictures on the right as well, or the painted area is on the right as well. But on the ground on the left, you see it. There's a clear area where that's the operator's working area. That keeps people from pushing carts too close to it, to the folding beam. Remember, this folding beam, it comes up and swings, 90 degrees. If somebody walks by and pushes this into this painted area, that folding beam can pinch the operator between the cart and the machine. That's obviously a big hazard. Keeping the floor painted and that area, the painted area, clean of anything on the floor is key. Also, a picture on the left has up on the middle long folder, on the gray one here, you'll see that we have a blocked off area. That machine's probably out of commission. This is a good practice that we see a lot, because there might be different reasons why that machine's out of commission. Maybe it's operable, but there's something wrong with it where, it is a safety hazard, and the OEM has to come out to address that. Maybe it just needs general maintenance. Maybe it's just shut down for the day. But when a machine is off and locked out, it should be blocked off as well. On the right-hand side, you see many problems. This is a little dramatic with the everything on the ground. What I have seen a lot of is, I can't say that I've seen these crates or this black box on the ground, but material on the floor. I've seen a lot of formed material on the floor. I've seen a lot of wires going across blocks for, whether it's stacking material or, whatever the reason, there's blocks on the ground. That's all dangerous. An operator needs to freely move through this painted area. So this is kind of the same topics that I just talked about. A couple more to add on this slide is often I get the question, how close to the wall should I put the machine? It really depends on the type of machine, but any machine you purchase, even if it can go up against the wall, you need to have at least 3 or 4 feet away from the wall for maintenance. Our techs have gone to many of a facility where somebody buys a machine and they slam it right up against the wall. And then if they need to get back to the rear of the machine to do any type of maintenance work or service work, they can't get there. They have to end up crawling under the machine. It's just much more difficult, draws out any type of maintenance PM work that you might be doing in-house. Clear danger zones. I'll talk a little bit about a 10-foot side frame or a 10 or 13-foot side frame folder here in a minute. But the clear danger zones is any moving axis should not have any material or banding or anything on it that can fall and injure or the operator or the machine itself. Point number 5 with tooling. That's important for especially a 10-foot side frame folders. When I say side frame, I mean that the clamping is done from either side and not the C frame. So generally speaking, OEMs that produce machines that are longer than 13 feet go to C frame machines, and OEMs who produce machines from 10 feet and up, 10 feet to 13 feet are going to go side frame. So on side frame machines, sometimes you change out tooling. You want to make sure the tooling is seated correctly. And before any type of movement, especially clamping or folding movement. When you take a machine from a locked out state to an operable state, the machine should always be looked at thoroughly on each of the danger zones that we're calling, but also, make sure that any working tools aren't laying there. We sell machines into high precision applications, and there's been a few times where somebody's clamped on a pair of calipers or, a tape measure. That's not going to ruin your machine, but it certainly can damage the machine. And it certainly can, cause injury if it's a larger object and an operator's too close. So here's a picture of a side frame folder. It's going to be the same. What you see a lot of in side frame folders is exactly like this chair sitting here. Something, or maybe this chair would be an unload table. It's fine for the normal, it's not going to get in the way of the folding beam, but what can happen is the operator can't get to this safety stop. So if this is a table and somebody's operating the machine and they need to hit the safety stop for some reason, they cannot reach this safety stop here. They would have to go to the other side. If they need to react fast, they might try to go here, realize they can't hit it and have to go back over here, but it's too late. Also, you see all the items stacked up on the electrical cabinet. This isn't going to hurt anything, but we talk about detail. Detail needs to be, we don't need to stack material up here. We need to make sure that it's not material, it's not the manual, tools, whatever. This is your electrical cabinet. This is your on-off switch. People storing different items here. Now, it's certainly not a safety hazard, but this is a big don't, because we want to be able to easily access this electrical cabinet. It provides for quicker maintenance. You know, if you ask an operator, or an operator needs to PM the machine, he wants to open the electrical cabinet, you know, maybe wipe some dust out of there to make sure it's, you know, we're keeping it somewhat clean. How likely are they going to do it if they have to move pallets of material or a water cooler or boxes of, you know, last year's orders or, you know, paperwork? On a side frame folder, we talk about the back gauge. The back gauge is more of a table on a side frame folder. I walked up to a facility in New York City one time, and they had, because real estate's so expensive, they packed machines in there. They had another folder almost back to back here. So the back gauge table is right here. They use the back gauge tables to store material on. That's a bad idea. It's very unsafe. If that back gauge moves back and grabs material, it's going to shove it forward on the operator working this machine. It's not only, if you don't have that kind of setup, you also want to think about what kind of binding is it going to do. You know, it can grab material and pull it forward if the, you know, if the circumstance is right with the programming. It can push it towards the operator when he or she's not ready. Also, it can, you know, if you stack more and more material up there, some machines out there don't have support legs on the back gauge. That's fine for normal use, but if you've stacked a whole bunch of material on there, it can cause damage to the machine. So you want to be aware of that as well. When we talk about PPE, ear protection, safety glasses, protective sleeves, safety boots, you know, steel-toed shoes, and then ear protection if necessary. With newer technology, even the hydraulic long folders are getting to be frequency-driven hydraulic pumps where they're not constantly on, they're on, off, so you're not hearing that constant humming. But, you know, making sure that people are remembering that. Okay, so now we're going to go to the proper startup of the machine. So now we've covered our area around the folding machine's clean. Our danger zones are okay. Now we need to turn on the machine. Now, every OEM process is going to be different. This is talking about a general, you know, I worked with Bradbury on covering this or creating this document. And, you know, we covered our machines and said, okay, these are general topics. Please refer to your OEM manual to verify these different procedures and processes, but this is generally what we need to do. Turn on the main power switch, disconnect at the MCE. This is important. Obviously, we're just turning on the power, but more importantly, don't leave the machine on when you power it, or when you're done for the day, or when you're done for a shift. You know, have a procedure for the team on when the machine needs to be powered off, what needs to happen when the machine's powered off, if the upper beam needs to be clamped, if it doesn't. On certain machines, specifically hydraulic machines, you're supposed to clamp the upper beam. Not all machines out there, but certain machines you do. That's to prevent a slow drift of the upper beam over time. Verify when you're after you turn on the machine on, verify that all emergency stops buttons in the operator station are pulled out or safe position. What I do when I start off a machine, I walk around, make sure they're all pulled out, because before I turn off a machine, I hit the emergency stop. That's not to, that's just kind of a habit that I have. It's not required. I don't think it's required by any OEM. It's just kind of a habit I have. But that's what I do before I turn a machine off. Now, after I turn the machine on, certain machines, like a sedan machine, will have an error that you have to clear when you turn it on. That's saying that, okay, everything is clear on the machine and I'm good to operate this. I always hit the emergency stop again. I like to check those. Those are checked regularly in our PM, our weekly, or maybe even daily or weekly PMs. But I always like to make sure the emergency stop works and it's registering with the control. I mean, these are all man-made machines, So, emergency stop can go bad. It has a default to, if we lose connection, that it's going to throw an error, but it could be a physical, like the button could be physically away from the actual red push button on it. So we want to make sure that they're functional. Then we're going to determine, especially on long folders, we're going to start to think about the operation of the machine. Determine how many operators are going to be required to run the folder. Different companies have different requirements in this aspect, whether you're using one person or two people. It also can depend on what kind of part you're running. So when you go to a two-person operation, we're going to get into the next point, which is the foot pedal operation. It is very important that when you're running two people on the machine, that you have the two-person operation active. So you can select one or two people, two operators. And I'll get into the reason why that's important here in just a second. Okay, so the function of the main operator switch. On long folders, you're going to have two operator switches or foot pedal switches. That's because a lot of people operate them in with two people. So you're going to want to have somebody who's actually controlling the which axis is moving, and then somebody who says the second operator has to be active on the pedal to say, hey, I'm here and I'm paying attention. So the main operator, this pedal has this whole pedal unit has two pedals, the left and the right. The first position is the clamp. The second position is, well, it depends on your OEM, but the second position can either be to fold or to raise the beam. Most foot pedals these days are going to be two-stage foot pedals. If you press hard on the foot pedal, you're going to click through the regular activity, the regular active state, and you're going to go to a reverse active state. So the clamp pedal, when you're coming down and you're in the standard active state, and then you step through to go to the reverse, it's going to actually raise up the upper beam. That's because if somebody gets in a situation where they see something that they don't like, people could tend to tense up, and they tense up, and they might not take their foot off that pedal in time. So they'll step through that second stage, and the beam will automatically raise up. It's not going to throw an error for you, but it's just going to reverse the action, and it's not going to hurt anything. If that upper beam is raising up, you're not going to hurt anything. It's just going through more detail on the positions. Again, refer to your OEM on this. It is very important when you look at these each OEM and what their foot pedals do. I cannot speak for all OEMs out there. So, second operator foot pedal. The operator has to be, the control has to be in a two operator mode. Sometimes that's a simple key switch like this. Sometimes it's a little checkbox in the screen on the touch screen. Depends on who made your machine and probably what year it is as well. A lot of people say for parts that are over 10 feet, you're going to use two operators. That's up to the discretion of the company. There's no type of OSHA requirement on that. What I would say is that look at the parts you're making and understand the manipulation of the parts. If it's a single fold or a double fold machine. If it's a long piece and you're doing a lot of flips, it's going to be better for your operators. They're going to be safer. They're not going to get as worn out by manipulating these parts all day, and they're going to be more efficient with operating. Granted, you are having two guys on the machine, but how many damaged parts or inaccurate parts cover adding another person to the operation. Anyways, the deciding one or two is all company specific. Anytime a second operator is utilized, the primary operator should get the confirmation audibly or visually from that operator. Okay, anytime we talk about keeping your hands away from the jaw. That's really any time with any amount of operator. But what I want to talk about here is the different stages of, or how the second operator switch is active or can be active. So there's again, the main operator, he's the master. And then this is the helper. So when the helper says, okay, I'm good to go, whether that's visually or audibly, the helper can press down on his pedal. There's going to be an operator sync time that the master pedal has to be pushed to activate the machine. It could be different with different OEMs. Honestly, I have no idea. But generally it's within a few seconds, 3-4 seconds, that once the helper operator says, okay, I'm in a safe position, I'm ready for you to control the machine, the main operator then can control the machine. If that operator sync time has expired, then the machine will not move. They have to go through the sequence again. It seems like a quick amount of time, but actually seeing operators do this, it's very efficient. They can kind of just work off each other, give nods to each other, and then they're working away. Now, the helper operator does have to know when he says okay, he can't adjust anything. That's when you have an operator who is used to working a machine on his own, he might, during the clamp process, adjust the material or make sure it's against the backstop again. Now, it's when you're operating with two operators in tandem, you really want to make sure that they're thinking about, okay, if I'm the helper and I tell the master I can go or he can go, then I have to be clear and free of the machine. If the axis is in movement and the helper takes his foot off the machine, the cycle will halt. So it'll stop, you have to reset, and you have to start the operation over again. That's important because if something were to happen and the helper says, oh no, I'm not good, he can terminate the process. Okay. When we're operating the machine, we want to check that all the tool rails are secured properly. Again, on long folders, that's not so much of an issue. You need to think about your folding beams. Generally, machines come with a thicker folding beam to bend thicker material. If that is put on for whatever reason, you want to make sure that that's seated in there nice and tight and secure to the machine. Set the folding beam to the relative thickness. That should honestly be reworded because it depends on what type of machine it is. It could say set the folding beam and or upper beam to the correct material thickness. On long folders, you have to pull the upper jaw back away from the 0 point of the bending and clamping in order to set the material thickness up correctly. That'll all be in your OEM's manual, that your operator should be trained on that. Honestly, you're not going to damn it. It's not a safety issue with your operator. It's more of a machine issue. You could hurt the machine by not having that set up correctly, especially if it's an older machine. It's not going to have the same type of errors that the newer models do. Position the sheet between the rails and push against the back gauge. It's pretty obvious. Number 4, let go of the sheet and keep hands away from clamping. I've been guilty of it, but it's amazing how many times you see people who are clamping and their fingers, their hands, their body is way too close to the clamping area. People get comfortable with the machines. We talk about this at the beginning of each trade shows with our sales guys and our technicians. You're comfortable with the machines. We're in front of people. People are talking. It can be the same way in the shop. Their friend walks up from, getting done with his job. He starts talking about how excited he is to go drink beer this weekend. And, he's leaning against the machine. The other guy's stressed out because he hasn't done his production. And, he starts moving the machine while his buddy's leaning against it. Be aware of what's going on around you. Respect the machine. take ownership of that. That's why I say, clean machine cultivates a longer, cultivates more safety, which is the most important, and then a longer lifetime of the machine. So taking ownership of that whole area is key with safety. You also, when on any type of machine, you want to check the clamping safety stop. This is an OSHA requirement that the machine come down and stop at a safety pinch rule. The safety pinch rule is, I believe it's 6 millimeters off the thickest material that the machine can bend. And there's a reason for that. A lot of people say, well, 6 millimeters, that will still hurt if I clamp my finger in that. Yes, it will. The reason it's designed is more so that it's not going to completely, you can still salvage something, but also you can't get your finger in after it hits that point. You have 6 millimeters is small enough where I can't squeeze my fingers in there and then hit the pedal again and clamp it. Because if it was, say, 12 millimeters or 10 millimeters, you can get more of the tip of your finger in there. And if you're really pushing on a sheet, you might slip and your hand go in there and then you come down and clamp. So all machines, you need to make sure when you clamp and it stops, that it's roughly at that measurement. Hit the e-stop on the machine and you can measure it. You can also check it and make sure, okay, is this the right dimension? Older machines, somebody might have messed with it. They said, oh, I don't want it this high because whatever reason, or I don't want it this low because whatever reason. But that's not necessarily the best way to go about it. We need to stick to that 6 millimeter off the material thickness rule. Proper operation of the machine. Clamp the sheet by pressing the left foot pedal again. This goes back to OEM. Look at your manuals. I don't need to go through all this. You'll be able to read this, and it's really dependent on the operator. So I'm not going to read exactly from the slide. I just want to talk about this a little bit. Don't have your hands on the material when you clamp it. Don't follow the folding beam up with material. Don't have your hands on the folding beam as it moves up. Don't have your hands on the material as it moves up. It's the same thing as a press brake. When you look at injuries on press brakes, a lot of it is because they have to support, on especially heavier material, they have to support the material going up, and that material can cause a pinch point between the upper beam and the material. That's obviously very dangerous. You don't want to do that. But once that material is clamped with what this industry is doing, we're talking, 29 gauge to 24 gauge to let's say 16 gauge, the machine's going to hold it fine. It doesn't need help bringing it up. And if for some reason you do look at your manual, 90% of machines out there can slow down the bending speed on a specific line so that you're not having to worry about supporting that material up if you have a lot of material outside the machine. Also, careful for whip up. Whip up is when you have a lot of material outside the machine and that folding beam's at full speed, boom, that material comes up, catches somebody in the chin or something. Be aware of the speed and where that material is going to move as soon as that foot pedal is active. This last point here, do not stand too close to the machine during the folding. Take a step back. Most OEMs will sell a foot pedal rail. And a lot of people say, oh, well, if I'm making boxes or if I'm making industrial or precision parts, that makes sense because I have to work in stations down the machine. It's not just for moving that foot pedal up and down the machine. What it can actually do is naturally keep the operator a little further back from the machine. Obviously, it's not a foolproof safety device, but having that foot pedal in an area or a general area away from the machine allows the operator not have to worry about the folding beam coming up and scraping him or her. General maintenance for the machine. I'm going to run through this fast because it goes back to the OEM in referring to your manual. Safety wise, power off the machine. It's amazing how many times I've seen people underneath machines or people with covers off and moving axes, and they're not trained to do it, or they're just trying to figure something out, but they're not looking around and understanding what's happening. Obviously, there's some troubleshooting that might need to happen with the machine on, but if you can achieve the goal with the machine off, try to do that. Next is make sure the safety stops work functionally. Kick bars on long folders. Make sure there's nothing blocking it, or it's not. It's still loose where it's going to activate if operator kicks it, it's going to activate the safety stops. Safety stops that might be on the side of the machine that isn't used very much, make sure they still work. Just all different safety features, always test them. Hit all grease fittings, that stuff's in the manual. You guys can read through this, but the other item I would say here is wipe down the machine. I've seen a lot of people who take an air hose. They take their air hose and put on a blower and just blow off their machine. All it does is just blow the dust and everything up into the air, and then it's coming right back down. Wipe off the machine. Get the operators used to taking care of the machine. They're going to start paying more attention to it. They're going to understand it more. And also tell them to, try to preach the ownership side of the machine. If they're listening for things, they're going to hear problems before they happen. If the machine starts squeaking, if it starts making a weird noise when it clamps or when it raises, they can bring that to the OEM's attention. We can probably diagnose it before you're dead in the water. But just refer to your OEM manual for the exact schedule. But those are some tips there. Okay, available safety devices. These are required safety devices you see here. You have your e-stop. Not all controls have them on the control. A lot do. You're going to have safety laser lights. These come in different shapes and sizes. This scans the pinch area of the machine. So this is on a long folder. We're scanning the pinch area across the whole entire machine. Now, you need to understand how these work. This is an important factor during an install or when you're training a new person. Some of these safety beams can be overridden because the machine itself cannot form typical parts that the industry needs if they can't be overridden. And a lot of times it's multiple steps on the pedal. So if a single operator says, hey, I know I'm blocking this light curtain with a flange of a part or something, but I still need to come down, they can double tap the foot pedal and come down. Now that's not on all machines, but there's little things like that you need to there's little overrides that you need to understand. The operator really needs to understand. I hate talking about this, but do mock scenarios. Okay, what do you do if somebody's finger gets pinched in the machine? What does the operator do if you're that person? And run through it with each of your operators. It's about the foot pedal, right? You can click through the foot pedal, the upper beam raises. Those are important understandings to go through your manual and highlight. And then in your safety meetings, you have to talk about them. Makes people respect the machine. The safety laser lights can also be on 10-foot machines. They shine across. Again, it depends on the system that you have and if it can be overridden. Certain OEMs do it, certain OEMs don't. Then you have your kick bar e-stop. So these are on long folders. When you're operating the long folder, say you're in the middle of the machine, you can't get reach over to an emergency stop by the time you want to. That kick bar, this orange kick bar, runs the length of the machine. All you have to do is kick that. It's going to activate the emergency stop. The machine's going to lock out. That's so different machine types have different safety features on them. Understand each one of them. And then if you're a shop that has multiple types of machines, go through the different safety features, go through the different scenarios of if an accident were to happen, what do we do? The machines are, with proper operation, very safe, but they're with improper operation, they can be very dangerous. Train your operators, train your temps, make sure that they're up to speed with everything. If you see anything happen, everybody stop, have a meeting about it, discuss it. Personally, what we do is every week we have a safety meeting. We cover different topics, and different people have to present scenarios. It can be everything from operating machines to, since we move machines a lot, the proper handling, proper placement and movement when we're moving machines. But yeah. As far as other safety devices go, there's a variety of different safety devices. Many you can add on aftermarket. Contact the manufacturer. We've added floor scanners, floor mats, so the operator has to be in a certain area for the machine to operate. Additional light curtains, safety bumpers on the folding beam. When the folding beam comes up and it touches an operator, the folding beam will stop. So lots of different features there, but all OEMs can add on those features. So just reach out to them and they're happy to help. But yeah, from here, we'll just kind of take it into any questions or comments.
Hey, everybody, if there's any questions or comments, you can either submit them in the chat box down below, or if anyone else has any questions, you can ask them in the Q&A section. Let us know if you guys have thoughts. If not, I'd like to personally say thank you very much, Chandler, for joining us today. We really appreciate you being here and helping us out with this. You were a phenomenal presenter. We look forward to seeing you soon, and we look forward to having all of you, our attendees, joining us on Wednesday, December 13th. Thanks, everybody. We hope you have a great rest of your day and a very happy holiday season.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.